we're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's July 6th here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Nal Song.
Good morning.
And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Earlier this week, South Korea said it would start investigating whether some 2,000 undocumented babies born since 2015 are safe. The country's national police agency found a total of 420 so-called ghost baby cases as of 2 p.m. Tuesday. Officers are currently looking into 400 of them. In just a single day, the number of cases that require investigation doubled, and so far 15 have been found dead. And now that the weather has gotten a lot warmer, more beaches have opened up to the public in Korea. But the local Coast Guard is asking those heading to the EC to be extra careful as they've discovered sharks in the area. Even great white sharks, the species made famous by the film Jaws. The Sokcho Coast Guard Station in Gangwon-do Province on Sunday said many fishermen found dead sharks near ports. And moving on to what's happening in Japan. The lunch menu of a salary man has garnered over 20 million views on Twitter. A 45-year-old man has reportedly saved around $692,000 by eating simple meals like this every day for 20 years. One photo shows a bowl of rice, a piece of pickled plum, and some egg rolls. Now we're going to take a closer look at the simple menus this man has eaten for the past couple of years to save up so much money. One time he had just 컵라면 with a boiled egg. Another time he only had white rice with miso soup. And the username of this man shows his life motto. His username translated to English is retirement man. In an interview with local press, he said his main goal is to save up and retire early because he finds himself without any talent for investing in stocks. He just decided to save up his salary and reduce living costs by cutting down on expenses used for food and his house. And the house he's living in, this is what caught my attention the most. He only uses $207 a month, which he said is fine because he often stays late at the office and frequently goes on business trips. He added that he is afraid, though, about what would happen when an earthquake hits because there's so many cracks on the wall. So you can just see how much this guy is saving up on living expenses. And what was your initial reaction when you heard about his story?
Well, I actually really admire this guy because I'm one of those people who spends a lot of money on unnecessary things like coffee every day. Like,
hey, that's a necessity.
It's a necessity.
It's a necessity, however,
It's
like
not.
several cups a day is
Yeah.
not a good thing. And you know, some people will call him frugal and some people call him stingy. I mean, I don't think he would make the best partner per se
That is so
because
true.
yeah, I mean, he would want to either make sure you go halves every time you go out on a date, or he would count every cent. So he wouldn't be the best friend or the best partner.
Yeah, can you imagine trying to date this guy and then he's like, oh no, I have to go home and eat my 컵라면 with
Yeah,
rice.
you can join me if you want, but you have to buy your own tofu.
I know.
Or he brings his own food to like the restaurant.
Yeah.
That'd be weird.
Ooh.
So, but if he's okay with this low spending lifestyle, I really think it's a great thing. I couldn't blame him, so good on him.
What about you, Nell? What was your initial reaction?
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw this, I was kind of like, the menu looked very simple, and he even said the egg was actually a luxury
I
that
know.
he has once in a while. I respect that so much because, you know, self-control, and like Walter was saying, you know, great job saving up and self-control, and, you know, he said he doesn't have a lot of talent in investment, so the idea behind this is great. But I personally am more of like a YOLO girl.
Yeah.
Not to go overboard, but you do only live once, and I don't know when my life is gonna end, so I want to save moderately.
Right.
I want to enjoy the good things of life, you know, in moderation.
You want to enjoy the moment.
Right, okay, not like to the full point that I go bankrupt, but you know what I mean? To
I know
do
what you
everything kind of balanced.
And as a person who loves food, I just need to spend a lot of money on food. But not like too much, as you said, it's not
Yeah.
excessive. But when I have my one meal of the day, like, of course I have all three, but if that one meal has to be really nice.
But I think it's very common amongst our generation to either go save so much money or really just go all out on spending just because we feel like it doesn't matter anyway.
It feels like, you know, just because I save this much money, it's not like I can buy a house or anything.
Right,
So I think
so-
that's why a lot of people can relate to the YOLO comment you made, including myself. And that was our news feed for this Thursday. Let's move on to our discussion topic. Today we're going to be talking about health issues, and that's because there's a specific disease that's putting many young people at risk. To find out what it is, take a look at the screen. Colon cancer. That's what recent studies found to be killing more youth than seniors. Researchers from Washington University School of Medicine found the number of people with this disease spiked among those aged between 25 to 29. In just 29 years, the number of people in this age group with this disease jumped by more than 21%. Why? Experts haven't pinned down an exact reason, but they believe it's because of how our generation eats. In the last 30 years, we've seen our generation consume excessive amounts of sugar and saturated fat. Today, NewsGen aims to look into this health phenomenon by answering 3 questions. 1. Why are more people from our generation suffering with colon cancer? 2. What are some main symptoms to look out for? 3. How can we better tackle this disease or even better prevent it? Today we're going to be talking about a disease threatening many people in our generation, colon cancer. Now, why don't you first walk us through how common this disease among our generation?
Yeah, to help you guys see better, I've actually prepared this graph to compare how common it is in Korea compared to other countries. So if we can have the graph up. So this graph is actually showing how many people out of 100,000 are getting colorectal cancer. As you can see, Korea came in first with 12.9 people, and Australia followed right after with 11.2, the United States and Slovakia right after that in third place with 10 people. But this actually is a number for Korea that's been increasing on a 4.2% since last year, and this is an increase in the 20s and 49-year-olds between everybody in between. So we should definitely be aware of this.
Right, what's frightening is that it's really common amongst young adults. But why do you think this is the case, Walter?
I think it's really frightening that the top 2 countries that seem to have the most cases are the ones that I grew up in.
Australia and Korea.
So I feel like it's twice in danger. So anyway, hopefully the rest of this episode goes well. I believe it comes down to what we eat, obviously. We mentioned it in the earlier on. A lot of the best foods in the world, I mean, the fatty foods, the good sugary foods. I can't get enough of them, but yes, the convenience of it has made our lifestyle different.
For sure.
So, you know, we can quickly just grab a burger after work.
Or 컵라면, you can just pour heated water inside a cup.
Exactly, and it tastes so good. It's also down to people's lifestyles as well. I mean, since we have turned into this fast tech moving society, and then pairing that with, you know, the accessibility to quick fast food, I see a lot of people, you know, exercising less or just spending too much time on the couch. And though we've seen also trends that promote health, like the body profile trend that went around, that is still not that good for your colon, I believe, because they go down to a very low fat percentage rate, and they're not eating a lot, and they just want to get those six-pack abs. I also
Not to mention, it happens in a very short amount of time.
It's extreme.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't imagine that would be good for your colon as well. And of course, the obvious signs of like smoking, heavy drinking, etc.
And stress. I think all diseases come pinned down to
Stress.
stress. For many illnesses, particularly cancer though, early detection and prevention is key. That's why we're going to see if we tick any of the boxes suggesting that we have colon cancer. I prepared a self-diagnosis test where you can see whether you have colon cancer or the symptoms. So take a look at the screen. Here are 5 questions you can use. The first one is, are you tired for no reason? Do you feel sometimes lightheaded? Do you often suffer from indigestion and feel like vomiting? Do you feel like you haven't completely emptied your bowels after going to the toilet? And last but not least, has your stool become thinner? Now, these are the 5 questions that you can use to see if you have some of the symptoms for colon cancer. And I see you guys have also been listening carefully.
Yeah.
How many boxes did you tick, Walter?
I said before that I hope this episode gets a little better, and it hasn't, because I think I tick most of those boxes.
How many?
Actually?
Like 5.
5 out of 5?
Yeah.
So you feel lightheaded for sometimes and you're tired for no reason?
Yes, I do. Like, even though I have a child, but I do
That's a reason.
That's a reason, but I think that it doesn't, it's not because of her that I'm tired.
Oh my gosh, well, we'll have to see what happens. You need to get a colonoscopy then.
Yeah,
soon.
well, it's booked.
Okay, that's really nice. What about
Yeah.
you now? How many boxes did you check?
I just have one, and it's feeling lightheaded, but I've been told it's because I have low blood pressure, so I'm not sure if it actually has to do with it, but now I'm scared.
Yeah, that's the thing. You always have to be aware whether you tick any of these boxes. It's really
Right.
nice to self-diagnose yourself. But more importantly, you should often go to the doctor and get a regular checkup like yourself, Walter. And we'll be connecting to one soon to actually hear whether you're okay.
Yeah.
But before we do that, let's come talk about how eating habits and bad health habits can cause things like this type of cancer. And we asked our viewers if they have any bad habits of their own that ruin their health. So let's hear from them of what they had to say about today's discussion topic. Take a look at the screen. So CPMN said sugar addicted, including breakfast cereals like Captain Crunch. I also like mayo, ham and cheese sandwiches, especially Subways. I love pancakes, waffles, and buttery bread toast with over easy eggs that are oily. You know what, CPMN? I completely agree with you. I love all those. Now, Try 3609 said lying down while snacking. This is the worst. Sleeping just after eating heavy meals. These are some bad habits for my digestive system and my body. And SG6PJ said, I take a short nap just after eating a meal. I know it may cause esophagitis and make me gain weight, but I can't help it. You know what? I totally agree with all of our viewers here. These are some habits that I have of my own, and I wish I could fix them very time soon. And we're going to be now talking to a doctor to find out how we can better prevent or stop doing all these bad health habits and eating habits, and also find out how we can treat colon cancer. We'll include her in our talks right after this. So what better way to find out how we can treat colon cancer than to hear from a doctor? That's why we prepared a live interview with Dr. Alice Tan from MZse대 Women's Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Tan.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Dr. Tan, speaking from a medical expert's perspective, what are the main causes of colon cancer?
So when we talk about cancer, we talk about risk factors for cancer. And the risk factors for colorectal cancer that are known are older age, obesity, diabetes, smoking, alcohol intake, family history, and also a diet that's high in processed or red meat and low in dietary fiber. In terms of the cause or why colon cancer happens, the most accepted theory is that changes occur in the genes of the cells within the colon, and that leads to uncontrolled growth of the cells. That will lead to a polyp, and if the polyp is not treated, then over time the polyp can turn into cancer, and that's called the adenoma to carcinoma theory for the development of colon cancer.
I see.
You just mentioned that it comes out in a lot of older people as well, but why is it that we see more increasingly that we see it amongst young adults as well?
Right, so that's a very good question. Recently released study out of Seoul National University identified alcohol intake, not just the amount of alcohol, but also the frequency of alcohol intake, increased the risk of early colon cancer, and that's early onset meaning colon cancer in people younger than age 50 years old.
Wow.
And many people may not realize that the incidence of early onset colon cancer is increasing. Right now, it makes up about 10% of all incidents of colon cancer, but it's particularly increasing in high-income countries. And it most likely has to do with dietary factors, as you identified earlier.
I see.
Doctor, I'm a mid-aged, mid-30s man who feels like he's a lot healthier than I don't eat too many bad foods. I'm a little worried now after doing that little test. What are the worst case? Well, can I ask more like what to expect if colon cancer were to occur? Are there any symptoms I should be looking out for?
Well, you mentioned some of the symptoms before, but The important thing is in young people, sometimes symptoms can be overlooked by both the patient and the doctor. They can be rationalized. So if a person has any blood in the stool after having a bowel movement, if the person has abdominal pain, weight loss is actually a late symptom. So is being lightheaded, because that would indicate that you've lost so much blood through the stool that you've actually developed anemia. If there's abdominal pain as well, we talked about the change in bowel pattern. So not just thin stools, but constipation can also be a symptom of colon cancer. So these are all signs and symptoms to look out for, and you should bring them to the attention of a doctor if you have them. It's very easy to overlook in a young person, both by the patient and the doctor. So it's important to make sure that it's evaluated thoroughly.
For sure, and I think one of the reasons behind that is because we're not really recommended by our doctors to have a colonoscopy, especially in your 20s. But should we though, now that we're seeing a higher rate of colon cancer among young people?
Well, so screening for colon cancer should be related to a person's risk. And in the United States, the age for screening for colon cancer actually was decreased from 50 years old to 45 years old.
Wow.
Specifically because of the increase in early onset colon cancer. In South Korea, the age for screening is still starting at age 50.
Right.
But as we mentioned, the incidence of early onset colon cancer is increasing. So there has been some discussion about decreasing the age for screening for colon cancer in South Korea as well, and what types of modalities would be most appropriate in a younger person. Now, screening happens when a person is asymptomatic, but definitely if you have symptoms, that's something different altogether. That's when you're looking for a diagnosis for those symptoms. And if the symptoms are suggestive of colon cancer, your doctor will determine what line of testing you require.
Right. Apart from screening though, is there one other way that we could better prevent ever catching this disease?
Right. So I talked about the risk factors. Some are non-modifiable. You can't change your age, but many of these risk factors are modifiable. So if you stay normal weight, so avoid obesity, you decrease the sugar that you're consuming, you don't smoke. And also, we talked about alcohol. Many people may not realize that in South Korea, moderate consumption of alcohol can increase the risk of early onset colon cancer by 9%. If you have heavy intake of alcohol, your risk of early onset colon cancer increases by 27%. And what we mean by moderate consumption is actually 1 can of beer or 1 glass of wine per day. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's what moderate means. And heavy alcohol intake is for a woman more than 20 grams of alcohol per day, for a man more than 30 grams. 1 can of beer has 14 grams. 1 glass of wine has 14 grams of alcohol. So for a woman, if you've had more than 1 can of beer or 1 glass of wine, you're already in the, if you've had more, you're in the heavy alcohol consumption category, and your chances, your risk for developing early onset colon cancer has gone up 27%. So that's something that you can definitely do to decrease your risk of early onset colon cancer. Just cut out alcohol altogether.
So just one quick question as well. Is it painful for people to have colon cancer if it hasn't been diagnosed? Is it something that is there a warning sign that they should be looking out for?
So it could be completely painless.
That's scary.
Early on. If you started to have abdominal pain, chances are it's progressed. And so that's why screening is so important, and paying attention to these symptoms and getting evaluated early on is so important. You talked about, what could be a worst case scenario. I had a patient who was in his 50s. His wife had passed away from a different cancer. He had colon cancer. He ignored the signs, didn't get screening, and ended up dying in his mid-50s, leaving his second-grade son an orphan.
Oh, no.
And so this is the thing about cancer. I mean, yes, the patient suffers, the patient can die, but the people who are left, the family members, they also have to live with the legacy of cancer, and they can be suffering as well. So this is a very important topic, and I'm so glad that you brought it up. And even young people should pay attention to this and pay attention to their symptoms, and also follow a healthy lifestyle so that they can prevent colon cancer and many other cancers as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Tan. Thanks to you. I think we learned about the symptoms and what to look out for from now on. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as Dr. Tan mentioned, I think it's about if you ever catch a disease, you never know it could happen to you, right? But I think a lot of people from our generation, because we're so young, we overlook it. We're like, oh, we're still young, we'll still be healthy. But that's not the case. You should always be aware of the dangers and drawbacks you have to suffer with once you get a disease, right?
That's right. I mean, health is always #1 priority. I've actually lost a few friends and family in the past few years to cancer, and I really hope that they come up with a cure for all kinds of cancer out there. But until then, like we mentioned, we should do our personal best to take care of ourselves, screening, monitoring, and I know this sounds cliche, but we should always remember that each day we're given is not to be taken for granted.
It's such a blessing. And also, as Dr. Tan mentioned, I sort of reflected back on how I've been eating, especially my alcohol consumption as well.
The red meat.
I never knew that 1 glass of wine per day was only considered moderate, and like 1.5 glasses would be considered heavy drinking.
Which is what you usually drink.
No, not every day. But that's what you think, like the little habits you have in life pile up, and then you can be diagnosed with a scary disease that it's really hard to turn back.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the reason why I asked as well. Like when I was going through this episode, I felt like, should I be looking out for more signs? I mean, I enjoy my food. I think everything in moderation though, and I think that when it comes to like unhealthy foods and healthy foods, but that also shocked me, the fact that 1 glass of beer could also be a reason.
A can of beer.
But yeah, so Korea luckily has a good system for health checkups every year, so I'm definitely going to go and see
advantage
something.
of that.
And especially now that you have a daughter too. You have a
Yeah.
family, and as Dr. Tan mentioned, it's not only about you being sick, it's about, the legacy that you're leaving with your family. That's why health matters. And all right, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Nelson.
Hi.
And Walter Lee.
See you next time.
All right, now thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.